All right, folks, here we go on this Thursday. We're going to be joined momentarily with attorney Stephanie Murphy is going to join us. And then we shall begin. We're going to go through some of the top legal stories. And I'm also going to touch on this Smithfield incident that as I mentioned on the radio show, the Boston Globe did a really thorough job by it with Ed Fitzpatrick. And I'll tell you, that superintendent, that principal, if you know the boys, if you know the parents, of those 5 seniors, that sounds like legal action to me. I also want, there's really nothing to be said in my mind about we talked about it yesterday, the Woonsocket murder, Matthew DeSalt. He was sentenced, and I gave, the mother just doesn't want to come on. The mother does not want, his mother does not want to come. Entirely up to her, by the way. All I can do, thank you. Roger says we're good to go. All I can do is offer, right? I mean, that's all I can. If they don't want to come on, they don't want to come on, which is entirely up to them. But what I did find with in regards to the mother of Matthew DeSalt, I just think they have a certain narrative, and they don't want, and this is my impression, they don't want anyone that's going to take away, hi there, Bill, who's going to take away from that narrative, because they coming up with, you said how you talked about his learning disability, and well, we know that the learning disability didn't prevent him from facing charges in court. We know that much. So I don't, suddenly, now he had a learning disability. I'm not going to get too into it. And I only say that is because yesterday we had a number of people, good there, Stephanie, who were asking about it and commenting, and, he was framed and all this other stuff. Folks, we're going to begin in just 3 minutes, and we're going to right out of the box with our legal expert, attorney Stephanie Murphy. The Brian Walsh case, I mean, they have the jury. We're going to talk about exactly what does it mean that he has pled guilty to 2 of the charges, obstruction in a police investigation, and then he also, Brian Walsh, did plead guilty to disposal of a body. So, I mean, I think that is really interesting. We'll see how that's going to shift it. And in regards to the situation with the homicide, so what you have is he was sentenced, but the judge made that odd remark that the judge feels that maybe there's someone else involved. I also want to relay, I have communicated with the Woonsocket police. They claim it is still an active, ongoing investigation. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. With the Walsh case, that is interesting. And then we'll also, I'm a little hesitant, we'll touch on Karen Reed, some of her, now that she's bringing, that dynamic now. Now the onus is on her to prove things. Remember, in the past, the first 2 trials, Karen Reed they just was saying you can't prove it. Well, now she's making accusations, I believe. But we'll hear from Stephanie on that, and we're going to be beginning in just a moment, folks. Again, this is our live, the live report each weekday. Remember, the radio show starts at 11 and it goes till 2, but this is the segment in the part that we're live, not only on the radio, but we're also live on X, live on YouTube, Facebook, and then we're also live on our website, which is depetro.com. Chilly day, but dry weather. So some very interesting dynamics. And I also want to mention, all right, so Greg Groom was indicted this morning in the murder of Kylie Montero, but I don't think there's a lot to be said about that. Only I don't think that case is, we see no evidence it's going to go to trial. He basically confessed to the police where she was. So I do get inquiries sometimes. All right, we're going to begin though, folks, at 106 on this Thursday. Yes, this is the John DePietro Show. We're live right now as we speak on this Thursday, November 20th. We're live on AM 1380, 99.9 FM. Remember, you can listen online at our website, DePietro.com, and this portion of our program, of which many people later, it's posted on demand, and people watch it later in the day. Sometimes they watch it at night, sometimes days later. Sometimes I hear from people who have questions as they're binge watching over the course of the weekend. Hey, I think that's terrific. It's entirely up to you. But this portion of the program, now remember, many of you out there, you never know when you may have a legal situation or a family member may have a legal situation. Marin, Barrett, and Murphy, 50 years, fine, Rhode Island criminal defense experience. Your fight becomes their fight. Call them. Remember, free. Hey, maybe the phone call, you hang up and say, I guess I don't need an attorney, or maybe you're setting up an appointment to go in. 401-228-8271. Let's bring her in from Marin, Barrett, and Murphy Law Firm. She is our legal expert, and we want to say good afternoon to attorney Stephanie Murphy. And Stephanie, I'd like to start off with the much anticipated Brian Walshe case. This is a case out of Massachusetts. And just before they were about to begin jury selection, the Walshe team announced in court and then made a motion that he did then plead guilty to, I believe, obstructing a police investigation, also, misleading police, but then also disposal, I believe, of elements connected to that. But the murder charge is still out there. So a lot of people are wondering, what can you tell us on the strategy of his defense team to plead guilty to two of the charges?
Yeah, I'm fascinated by this, John. In all honesty, I wonder what the judge is going to allow in and what the judge will, keep out in terms of the plea deal. From a defense perspective, I always try to minimize any damage, or if there's some counts that, the jury can definitely find the evidence and prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, I might try to keep those counts out by possibly pleading to something. But I would want to guarantee that the jury wouldn't hear about those facts and evidence and stuff like that. So I'm very interested to see what motions in limine are going to get filed in terms of what the defense attorney is trying to keep out and how the state's going to respond to those motions. And if the jury is going to hear proof of those pleas and what those charges were.
Stephanie, just for those that may or may not be familiar with the case, I mean, they had quite a bit of circumstantial evidence. They have him on video going to a Home Depot, purchasing them things. Of course, the Google searches on the son's iPad, but I believe in one of the dumpsters, they were able to, they believe, get some fragments. I think they also found her handbag, but nobody. So it does seem, does this set up, okay, maybe in fact, something, in other words, they can't really seem to prove how she met her demise, if in fact she is dead.
Or that he did it, maybe had some, collaboration or some, play or role in the disposal or, trying to, trick the police and stuff like that. But whether or not the evidence will point to him actually, committing the murder and the killing is completely different. And that's, as you know, the most serious charge here. So if the defense attorney strategy is try to minimize the risk and stuff like that, it could definitely be a good strategy. But it's really fascinating. I can't recall the last case where something like this has happened on a murder charge.
Yeah, and not a high profile one. And just finally on this, Stephanie, so going forward, a lot of the evidence the police may have, it's very possible that they're not going to be allowed to introduce it at trial.
I mean, that's the case in every case, whether it's a misdemeanor, a felony, and stuff like that. As a defense attorney, I would file motions in limine, and that would be to suppress what the prosecution can bring in. Or if there's stuff that I want to bring in, I'd file a motion in limine to allow it to come in. Sometimes the strategy is to lay everything out in motions beforehand. Sometimes the strategy could kind of see how the case goes and kind of surprise people. I don't really think people are that aware that the defense doesn't have the same burden to say everything that they're going to present in a criminal case. They can react to what the prosecution puts on, and they can introduce evidence that's rebuttal evidence that's not technically, it doesn't have to be disclosed beforehand. So the defense has a very unique perspective in terms of introducing evidence. It can be done as rebuttal evidence that, they don't have to necessarily let the state know about ahead of time if it meets certain conditions.
Stephanie, our next case, and again, we're speaking with attorney Stephanie, legal expert Stephanie Murphy. Stephanie, this case out of Woonsocket with this Matthew Salt, it's gone on for quite some time. Homicide, Connie Gauthier, happened March of 2016. They did a unique, different way of doing DNA testing, and then they felt it did lead to someone. He was then questioned and then, I believe, charged in 2018. In the beginning part of the year, when he was found guilty, his defense asked for an opportunity, led by Mark Smith, to try to argue that because of his age that he should not get life. And so I want to get your thoughts on, the judge gave him life but with parole, and the judge, so I made kind of an interesting remark that perhaps there was someone else that was tied into this case that as of right now has not faced any charges.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. In Rhode Island, I'm not sure in other states, but I've had, clients who are 14 or 15 years old charged with, capital cases such as child molestation, such as, first degree murder and stuff like that. And it's very interesting. More and more studies are coming out that the brain capacity of a teenager is nowhere near the brain capacity of somebody over the age of 20. And, Rhode Island has enacted some laws such as Mario's Law and stuff like that, which are some great laws that kind of take that into account in terms of like parole eligibility. But really, when it comes down to sentencing, the judge has to take everything into account, the victim, the loss of life. They also have to take into account the defendant, his mental, everything about him. It's a really, really tough thing to have somebody who maybe is of a younger age with maybe some intellectual, issues that might not make him, an adult thinking, but he's being tried as an adult. I really think this law and some changes are going to come down in the next decade or so. But right now, it kind of is what it is. And it's a really big problem for some of my clients and some other defendants in the state.
And he's so far, I believe he's been locked up since 2018. We're 2025. That's 7 years. Do we have a ballpark idea? He was just sentenced just the other day. Do we have an idea of when he may first be up for parole?
Well, if he qualifies for Mario's Law, then he would be eligible sooner. If not, life with the possibility of parole is about a 25-year sentence if the crime was committed after 2015. So he's looking, it used to be a third and all these different things, but for murder, it's about 25 years to see the parole board. I know that's a very, very long time, especially for a young person that got charged with it. But I really think he would have some strong arguments at the first time at the parole board based on his age and his capacity at that time, that he is someone that could have changed, that could have grown up and stuff like that. So he's looking about 25 years before he sees a parole board, unless he can qualify under some other condition to see the parole board before. I know Mario's Law allows you to see the parole board more often if you were a youthful offender. But I would say about 25 years on a life sentence with the possibility of parole.
Now, Stephanie, with the never-ending saga of the Karen Reed case, this took a different turn. Is now she is launched. She wants to go after not only the police, but the people that were at the home that night at Fairview. And if you could just touch on, this is to me, it's a different dynamic, because now the burden seems to have shifted to her, that she has to prove a lot of these accusations that she's making about police corruption, and more specifically, what happened to John O'Keefe that night inside 34 Fairview.
Yeah, absolutely. She's going to have to come up with some answers and some explanation that would point to other people. Whereas in the criminal trial, she had no obligation to say or do anything or, create any sort of an alibi or anything like that. So it's completely different. She has to show that there was some negligence or some wrongdoing on the part of the state police and other people at the house. The burden's on her to prove this case, unlike the criminal case where she didn't have to say anything, do anything, present any evidence. So, she's going to have to be prepared to prove that. And that's going to she's going to have to be prepared to prove that right away, or, motions are going to get filed in order to get rid of this case as quickly as possible.
Much, much different. To date, they've still really never established any type of motive, any type of weapon. I just, maybe this stuff is out there and they're going to bring it in. I think they're saying they have some new evidence, but I think it's people to have a different, they don't get the full sense of now the onus is on the recamp. Now, also, Stephanie, there was some body cam footage that went out of some arrests with the Webster police. And the police afterwards actually even issued a statement saying sometimes arrests are not pretty, I believe is the way they worded it. If someone's being arrested, detained by police, what is something that would jump out at you that someone may not like, or they feel that it's being rough, or the handcuffs are tight on them? But what is something that would jump out at you that someone may have a viable argument or case to be made that they were, treated with some sense of almost brutality?
I think body cam footage, because the officer is supposed to start turning on the body camera at the first encounter with whoever they're encountering and keep it on unless they're having like a privileged conversation with another police officer or on the phone or something like that. So what I look for I always request body cam footage. And what I really look for is inconsistencies with the police report that they file or give to me and the body cam footage. A lot of times the police reports they can be exaggerated or not as complete. And the body cam footage is a neutral piece of evidence. So what I look for is the demeanor of everybody, what builds the situation up to an escalation, who's the one who escalates the situation, and then watch the body cam footage to see how it unfolds. I understand and I respect the police tremendously. They have a very difficult job. And most of the time they're dealing with people having a really bad night and probably not behaving how they should. So I absolutely get it, but I take a look at the whole picture from start to finish and kind of see what's appropriate and stuff like that. And now with body cam footage, I think you have a much better idea of the whole picture. Whereas before you would have the defendant's word, against the officer's word, and then you have the police report. Nowadays, you have a lot more to look at in terms of seeing the whole picture and seeing how a police officer should behave. And even if it doesn't rise to a civil suit, it could be a great learning experience for the police department and ways to just do things a little bit better.
I find, Stephanie, if anything, it has police on better behavior since they've introduced the body cam. I know a lot of people thought it was going to hurt them. I think, if anything, I've noticed that they tend to comport themselves when they know they're going to be in the spotlight.
Typically, the body cam footage hurts my clients.
Go ahead.
In all honesty, it hurts my clients more than it helps.
Yes.
In all honesty. So it's good and it's bad. If it's bad, I try not to introduce it. I try to suppress it. But most of the time, I think the body cam footage tells a whole story, and it tells a story, like typically why the police acted the way they did. So I think it helps the police and hurts my clients more often than not. But there's always those chances, and it's always something I review with every case.
Folks, it's time for Murphy's Law. This is a story that attorney Stephanie Murphy has found. And what do you have for us this week, Stephanie?
So first of all, I want to say thank you to the listeners of your show who have called me this week. I think I got 3 or 4 phone calls. I was able to help a bunch of them. Some of them is an area that I don't do, but I refer them out to some of my law school buddies. So I really appreciate people reaching out to me. It means a lot to me. But really, I wanted to let people know that the judiciary website is being upgraded. And in the near future, it's going to be a lot more user-friendly for everybody. in terms of finding out information, e-filing cases, just everything. And I think it's really good that the public knows that, the judiciary does have cases online. The system's going to get better and it's going to be more user friendly. So people can use that website to learn about current cases, learn about what's going on in the legal community and stuff like that. So I'm very excited for the update. I think it'll be helpful for attorneys, but also really helpful for the public too. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're trying to find legal information. You can go online and look for it, not necessarily have to go to the record center or the courthouse to find out how to do things or look up a case.
I like that. And again, what is the best way for people to reach out to you? I'm glad they
Just
are. We
call
are
us
the number one
24
show
hours.
with criminals.
Yeah, call us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's not very common that my clients are getting arrested between 9 and 5 in the day. So you can call, you can text. Always willing to
Right.
help. And we have attorneys in all the different courthouses in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Massachusetts. So if you need anything, just call first. And if we can help you, that's wonderful. If we can't, I'll definitely point you in the right direction.
All right, folks, again, it's attorney Stephanie Murphy. Stephanie, excellent job as always, and we'll talk to you again.
Great, John. Thanks. Bye.
All right, folks, and there it is, attorney Stephanie Murphy right here on the John DePietro Show. And I'm telling you, don't guess. Don't ask the person that sits next to you at work. Don't ask listen, your brother-in-law doesn't know anything. Call them, 401-228-8271. Now, heating and cooling this time of year. Remember, Propane Plus, always online at propaneplus.com, residential or commercial. Remember, you can depend on Propane Plus for all your heating and cooling, residential or commercial. You depend. That's what you want. You want someone you, in fact, can depend on. And that company is Propane Plus. And family, the best call serving Rhode Island and Massachusetts. And also, their website is 24/7 online at propaneplus.com. Remember, residential or commercial, you can depend on Propane Plus. You just log on and then look at that easy menu, residential, commercial, heating or cooling. It is Propane Plus. Now, I want to touch on a couple different stories. Now, first of all, just a brief update. We did talk about that Matthew DeSalt case yesterday in Woonsocket. And I want you to know, prior to when we talked about it, I did post that I wanted to give an opportunity, is what I want to say, to his mother was at the courthouse, as you would imagine, and doing various interviews with, I think Channel 10 was there and Channel 12 was there and so forth. So now, yesterday into the day, I was then communicating with her. And again, offering, she's got a petition up. She's trying to get attention for it. If she wanted to, all I can do is ask and provide the opportunity. She has decided not to. I also want to just follow up on that. I did communicate with the Woonsocket police, and they said that it's still, and I want to make sure I quote them correctly, but it's still an active investigation. So I don't want to, many times when we get that type of information, I don't want to read something into it. I take people at their word. We have a very good working relationship with the Woonsocket police. I was specifically asking about an interview that he had done, Matthew DeSalt, who's on the screen, with the police. And right now, it never became part of the court record. And the investigation, here's the quote, is still not closed and it's considered open. So you can take that and read into that. Again, all I can do is offer. I know we had a number of people that would tune in that are supporting him, supporting the mother, supporting the family, what have you. I also want to clarify, and I did communicate this with her. It's entirely up to her. If she would like to set up a time, we could do it. I even offered more of a nighttime type thing where it's a little more free flowing. We're not under such a tight guideline we can accommodate. But I also wanted to point out that I want to be very clear. I don't believe there's a media narrative on this. Very clearly, I don't think anyone's being framed. I don't. I don't believe that somehow the police they botched the investigation. I'm not saying those things can't happen, but what when we're going through a story like this, admittedly, I follow what's admitted in court. I find it easier that way. And really, that's the only thing that matters. And I also just want to remind people and mention he's been found guilty, he's been sentenced. So it doesn't matter really. I believe he wanted a new trial. It has no bearing if I think oh my God, he got railroaded or it's already been decided. It's not, this could be happening. He received a trial. They deemed he was competent enough to stand trial, and that was the result. So anything else, again, this business of, and I just want to clarify because I do want to really talk about Smithfield football, but there's a reason why when the judge decides certain evidence can't be allowed in. And to me, the people that argue that someone really didn't do something, but then the judge wouldn't let the evidence in, to me, that's a little bit of the people that complain after a game that, because of the refs they lost or that type of thing. And just to be very clear, the only thing I'm interested in is what's been admitted as evidence. And a lot of people get confused by that because I hear remarks and see people post things and say to me, there's a lot of evidence that they didn't talk about. Well, there's a reason why it wasn't allowed in. So if a defense or a prosecution, by the way, both sides, but if they can't get evidence in, it's really not evidence. So this business of, well, there's so much evidence they didn't allow in. I hate to pivot back to and even mention the retrial. There was there's so much evidence that the judge didn't allow. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. The only thing that matters is what evidence is put in, because that's the real evidence. That's the real evidence. The rest of the stuff, that there's reasons why it's not allowed in. All right. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So we're not going to go on and on. If the mother doesn't want to do an interview, no one said it was easy. I didn't say it's not an easy situation, that's your son and so forth, but we're not going to, it's already been decided in the court. It's already been decided in the court. Folks, this portion of the program, I have so many people ask me about I want to talk about the Smithfield football team and what happened here. And great reporting by the Boston Globe, by the way. But Kids Club on the Pike, they are just fantastic. Birthday parties or team parties, before and after school programs, summer camp, preschool, Kids Club on the Pike, birthday party venue. But they also offer before and after school care in preschool. So maybe you're a mother or grandmother looking for different options. They have half and full day program for preschool children ages 3 through 5. They provide transportation before and after care for school-age children 5 through 12. Kids Club on the Pike. Where are they located? Plainfield Pike. They have great social media. I share their Facebook pages right off of 295 on the Cranston-Johnston line. It's Kids Club on the Pike. You can call them 401-443-5336 for Kids Club on the Pike. Now, a couple of other topics that I did want to mention. I am aware. I actually think it's pathetic. I think I don't know if sad is the right word. I'm going to stick with pathetic. That as we speak, there was a demonstration outside the courthouse, and the Providence City Council president was with this group, and they're protesting. And why are they protesting? And again, I appreciate when people reach out. But just to be clear, that is not a go and cover in any way. So the protest is they want to have it set up that illegals don't have to go to the courthouse and they can do it remotely because ICE agents are showing up and they're arresting them outside the courthouse. So now, number one, the group that sponsored this, I'm not going to go and cover them. I despise those people. I can't believe the tolerance that is put up. That is asinine to me. In perfect, to be perfectly frank, I think that is so atrocious and embarrassing. Think of the lunacy of that. You have someone like that guy. He was a MS-13 gang member, and he was wanted. And they found him hiding. Ivan, as David Morales, who's running for mayor of Providence, said, our neighbor Ivan. They found him hiding right off of Hartford Avenue. MS-13 gang member peddling fentanyl. Do you understand these people were protesting? Like, this is foreign to me. What has happened? What has happened to our area? Who is running the ship here? That is so ludicrous. And that Rachel Miller, she's the president of the city council in Providence, joining them, saying a guy like that, let's have him, if he has to be in front of a judge, well, let's have it set up so he can do it remotely, so ICE can't grab him outside of the courtroom. In what planet does that make sense? These people are, what is wrong with these people? Does that make sense I can't believe I'm actually repeating these things, but it's true. Activist group to call for virtual hearings. Reported courthouse ICE arrests. Yes, that's what ICE does. They arrest people that commit crimes, have committed crimes, and they're not even supposed to be here. Do you know why they're in court? Because there's warrants out for their arrest, that they've broken the law. They're not knocking on doors. They're not just stopping someone that looks a certain way. When they go to the courthouse, ICE, they know exactly who they're looking for. A group called the Deportation Defense Line, that guy, the leader of that line, of this group, the Deportation Defense Line, is the biggest clown you've ever met. He's a transgender person, was a guy, has long hair, now suddenly, the female pronouns, she, her. He was an activist against Israel. The leader of this group, he was an activist. I know exactly who that is. Been dealing with this person since October, 2 years now. He was the one holding the sign, Gays for Gaza. He's mentally ill. And the media treats he or she or they, whatever, as like a hero, a heroine. Gays for Gaza. Do you realize in Gaza they throw any homosexual off the roof of a building? It's against the law. It's outlawed. Gays for Gaza. I mean, that is the biggest. Trans for Gaza. He's the leader. Deportation Defense Line. The Providence Journal can't do enough stories on it. They're holding a press conference outside of Superior Court. No longer should ICE be able to arrest illegal. Well, they don't use the word illegals. ICE waits outside. Rachel Miller, 45 organizations, lawyers, have signed an open letter calling for virtual courts. I want to see a copy of that letter. None of those people belong in office. I mean, this is, where is this going? No, let me explain something. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. These little rats that run around and they try to blow whistles and interfere. Do you understand? Stop telling me Stop telling me. The media never, local media now, they never offer the other side, which is this business. These people, they're not supposed to be here. Not only are they ingrates, not only are they criminals, they're also not American citizens. They don't enjoy the same rights as American citizens. Membership has its privileges, as they say. It is so moronic. Rachel Miller is she's the head of the Providence Town. I think I have let me find, I think I have a graphic of her. Like, they just keep pushing it. The Providence Journal, they love these stories. They can't run enough of these. Just like Kathy Gregg. That's why I enjoy talking with Justin Katz. Kathy Gregg, the guy in Warren, he hasn't been arrested in Rhode Island since 2012. Why was he arrested at all in 2012? Yeah, I get it. He lives in Fall River, New Bedford, but he was working at Blount Seafood. Jason Knight, they had no right to, they had every right to remove that. He's not, what part of not supposed to hear do you not understand? Oh my God, these people. I'm telling you. But the local media, I know a lot of people try to go after, I have her somewhere, that Rachel Miller. Rachel Miller, George Washington called. He wants his teeth back. I have it somewhere. Let me see. It's just so ridiculous. She, right? I know I have it. I just, of course, now that we're live, I can't find it. That's probably, no, that's not it. This is, I'm going to follow up with this because I want to see. I want to see who signed this stupid letter that they've, show up in person like everyone else. Oh, are they being swept up? Yeah, ICE is grabbing them. They find out, hey, whatever it is. Ivan the illegal, the MS-13 gang member. These people can be very difficult to find. They find out he's going to be in court. How about we had the situation in Portsmouth where they had to play the game where Portsmouth police, all right, everybody ready, set? They line up ICE agents. All right, ready, set? Go, you're free. And then the guy runs out and ICE has to tackle him and apprehend him. And then his friend, like, what is this? We have no leadership. I'll say that. We have no leadership in this state. I'm telling you, Governor Juan, I would be standing with ICE demanding that I want to do the next arrest. These people, I can't explain it enough. They have no standing. His rights as he's not even supposed to be here. Not only is he not supposed to be here, he can't stop from being arrested. Kathy Gregg, he hasn't been arrested in Rhode Island since 2012. Yeah, he was supposed to be deported in 2009. Oh, okay. I didn't realize he hasn't been arrested here since 2012. Why was he arrested at all? Providence Journal. Do you realize ICE is a national organization? Right? Someone's wanted in wherever. The FBI can go and come up. So suddenly the Providence Journal, hey, the FBI, you can't arrest that guy. He hasn't been around Rhode Island in 2012. That's right. But he's wanted in these other states. And the FBI, as the agent says in the town, we are a national law enforcement agency. As he says to Claire, what kind of defense is that? I'm telling you, these people live in an alternate world than I do. Because I don't understand any of it. I really don't. Oh, they should be able to do it virtually because ICE keeps scooping up all these criminals. Yeah, exactly. Sounds like the system's working perfectly. Folks, this portion of the program, now there was a fire very late, early morning, on Althea. We were right by Althea yesterday. Am I on Althea? There was a fire in Althea. Now, if you know the landlord, tell them to call ServPro of Providence, 401-941-5500. ServPro of Providence, fast, thorough, professional. If you have a fire, so let's just talk about that, the family home, whatever, in Althea. All right, first, you can only imagine how much water the Providence fire dumped into it. So they had fire damage. Now they have water damage. They certainly have smoke damage. And with all the water, they're probably going to have mold damage. They need to call Serve Pro of Providence today. And this could be you, 401 941 5500. Fast, thorough, professional for Serve Pro of Providence. All right, I want to touch on Smithfield. I thought I don't know why. Well, I do know why. I was caught on something else. I was working on another project, but I thought I had the graphic. I do like to use the graphics when we can. I On the radio show, I read the is that it? I think that's a different school in Smithfield. Yeah. But anyhow, all right. I read, and I want to give credit to Ed Fitzpatrick of the Boston Globe. That's the other school, actually. The situation in Smithfield, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but there's a great story in the Boston Globe. I want to give credit to Ed Fitzpatrick. He did a full timeline. And you've heard, and I'll admit, I had heard from someone who I know is part of a Jewish organization. Now, this individual that was giving me the information is different than the Jewish organization that I'm involved in. I'm a member of the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel. Now, granted, I am Roman, but they have both Jews and non-Jews with the Rhode Island Coalition for Israel. But someone I know with the other group, which I forget the name, but they were telling me, oh no, they were calling him, this is the Holocaust game and blah, blah, blah. Do you understand the story? If you know the parents in Smithfield, based on what I read, the superintendent should be terminated. The principal should be terminated. What is wrong with those people? I can't believe, maybe even a clean sweep, maybe also the football coach and the athletic director. I don't know who was the decision maker, but the Boston Globe story about Smithfield, where there was no anti-Semitic remarks about this freshman football player, and both his parents and let me just pull up the name, the Jewish organization that is spreading all of this, they're also to blame. If you are connected to the parents of those Smithfield seniors, I think there could be legal action here against the schools for the way that they were treated, because this whole narrative, they were knocking him to the ground. Yeah, it's football. They were knocking him to the ground because he's Jewish. No, they were knocking him to the ground because it's a football team and he had the ball. What haven't they? They brought someone in to give the boys an assignment. Can you imagine this woman? The nerve of this, and the principal, and the superintendent, Adam Greenman. That's it, President and CEO of the Jewish Alliance of Greater Rhode Island. I've never been impressed with that organization. They go against Israel in the Hamas-Israel conflict. They do. But that agreement, Jewish Alliance of Greater Rhode Island, they're the ones that were telling me this stuff. And they're the ones trying to say, we believe survival. Like, what are you talking about? The freshman football player that they locked in the stall and they sprayed Lysol on, and they threw ice on him. There is no evidence at all that it had anything to do with what his faith is. They didn't even know what his faith is. They were chasing him. They were chasing him because they're a football team and he had the ball. They were chasing him much like the Jews were chased at Treblinka and Auschwitz. No, they weren't. They were chasing him because he had a football and he's on the football team, or was on the football team. They were knocking him to the ground, said the Jewish Alliance. Yeah, that's what they do in football. Several of them knocked him to the ground. They call it tackling, actually. It was just like what happened in Auschwitz. Actually, it's nothing like what happened in Auschwitz. They were chasing him. Again, because the football team had the ball. They didn't single him out. As soon as he lateraled the ball, they chased someone else that had the ball. The Jewish Alliance ought to go to a football game or football practice and watch how they interact and generally tackle whoever has the football. Nothing like Auschwitz. I can't believe they brought in Smithfield High School now. Wendy Juring, executive director of the Sandra Bernstein Holocaust Education Center. They brought her in. The nerve of this lady. First, they brought in Lillian Birch. My mother and father survived the Holocaust. What does that have to do with Smithfield High School? Other than nothing. They were also tackled. They were not playing football in any of the death camps. But what I can't get over is this Wendy Juring, executive director of the Sandra Bernstein Holocaust Education Center, gave the boys books about the Holocaust and said, "You're going to write an assignment for me." Really, what's the name of the assignment? The name of the assignment is Why I Hate Jews. That is, what are you talking about? Those kids should have walked out. What? You're not even a teacher. You have no standing at Smithfield High School. You chased him because he's Jewish. No, they chased him because he was on the football field with the ball. You knocked him to the ground just like the Nazi guard. No, that's called tackling in football. Wow. And the principal, I want 5 of you to stay behind. I'm telling you, the adults left the planet. The principal, you know exactly who you are. There's no evidence that the reason they did that to this freshman player, zero evidence that it had anything to do with his faith or that he was Jewish. Zero. And I like, what is that Greenman says? We believe the victims. Her son was barricaded in the school bathroom and sprayed with Lysol because he was a Jewish football player, just like what happened at Auschwitz. First of all, I highly doubt they were playing football at Auschwitz. And there's nothing remotely close to this. Adam Greenman, we believe the victims. He was barricaded because he was a Jewish football player. We're going to work on anti-Semitism. We believe all victims. But I'm going to step back for a moment. The principal and the superintendent, just so we're all clear, they're the ones that allowed this to happen. They're the ones. The parents that apparently were at a JV game, that were all talking about it. Yeah, can you imagine? Isn't that terrible? Whoever the parents were doing that at a JV game, you contributed to this. How about the fact, what I can't get over is this woman from an outside organization. They bring the whole football team in. According to the Boston Globe, they bring this woman to the front. The principal says, I want the 5 of you, the Jew haters, stay behind. They make the 5 senior players stay behind. And then the woman from an outside organization who's giving them an assignment, is she a teacher? No. Is she affiliated with the school in any way? No. You're going to write an assignment for me on why you hate Jewish people so much. She then says, and I want your names. So the principal stands there and makes these kids give their names to this outside person. What world do these people live in? I want to repeat, and I don't want to be redundant. I know some people aren't going to get this. Why was Lillian Birch brought in to talk about how her parents survived the Holocaust if there was no anti-Semitic talk? They have no evidence of anti-Semitic talk. Why did Wendy Zuring want to write down the boys' names? She's not a CCD teacher. She's not even a teacher. But what I can't get past, the principal told the parents, I guess if I had to do it all over again, maybe I shouldn't have done that. They were chasing him. Yeah, it's a football team. It's part of practice. There's so much anti-Semitism, he had to wear a helmet. They were beating him so much for being Jewish, he had to wear pads. No, they all wear pads. They were filmed chasing him around the field. Right, that's a football drill. He had the football. He's on offense. They're on defense. They're chasing him. They were throwing something at him. Right, it's called a football. He had to run. Well, you don't see a lot of people walking on the football field. If you are, again, if you are a parent involved, Smithfield, I know the superintendent's on leave. Admittedly, I don't know these people. This is a complete disgrace that was allowed to take shape. And as I said, these people and these, now granted, if you're one of these young men, what a lesson they're learning, right? I mean, the whole business of adults telling them, just tell the truth. Tell the truth. Those kids should have got up and walked out. This thing went so off the rails with this principal and superintendent. I want to repeat what I've said in the past. If there was no anti-Semitic talk and you can't find any evidence of it, then you don't bring in, whose idea was it to let's bring in a Holocaust survivor or whatever the parents were and start this narrative. They were chasing him, much like how the Jews were chased at Auschwitz. No, it's a football field. They chase whoever has the ball. Or if he was on offense going out for a pass, they were beating him so hard he had to wear a helmet. They're all wearing helmets. Much like the guards at Trump. No, there is no comparison to what was going on. And I want to be very clear. I don't know any of the parents. I don't know any of the students. I want credit and the Boston Globe that I think, unless the Valley Breeze has done a story and I just haven't seen it, I think they've done the most extensive story on it. And it's worth reading because this is really shameful behavior. And as I've said also, I get many times a principal or a superintendent or an athletic director or a football coach, you can almost hear the attitude of like, I didn't sign up for this. Listen, this happened on your watch. And that kid's parent, the problem now is this student, now it's him and the parents are standing alone. And now the mother, see, now it's gone so far that the mother is insisting, or the parents are, I don't know if it's the mother or the father, but they're insisting it happened. They did it. They were chasing him because he was Jewish. They tackled him to the ground because he was Jewish. He had to wear a helmet and pad. They were beating him so much because he was. Now they won't go back. Now they're stuck on that story. Yep. The only reason they did that, they allowed the whole projection on the side of the building. Never again, anti-Semitism in Smithfield High School. I blame the adults. Listen, kids are going to do stupid things. I think the kids are arguing, hey, this happened to me when I was a freshman. Now we're a senior. Of course it's juvenile. Of course it's stupid. It is. But the children in this situation were all let down by the adults. And I can't get over that principal and superintendent. Yeah, you're going to do an assignment for her. And the name of the assignment is, why do I hate, Jewish people? And one of the kids is like, well, I don't hate Jewish people. That's it. You're going to get a double punishment if you keep denying it. Why were you chasing him? Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. The clock is ticking. Get your driveway paved, J. Perry Paving, 401-732-1730. 401-732-1730, letter J, J. Perry Paving. Free estimate. Get it done. And remember, if you're a veteran, no one has a better package for veterans than J. Perry Paving. Call them today, 401-732-1730 for J. Perry Paving. What I like about the Boston Globe story about Smithfield is it fully illustrates how that the Smithfield High School football went totally off the rails, and there was no adult in a position of authority to step forward and say, this ends right now. You're saying isn't there. This is a little bit, this is a little bit, not fully to the extent, but reminiscent of the Duke lacrosse, where that, the train just left the station. A bunch of Duke lacrosse players, and they, raped a stripper and blah, blah, blah. I don't, the principal and the superintendent, whoever thought that, I don't, the rationale, I can't get over the woman coming in and then saying to these students, yeah, I want your names. These kids are young. And I'm sure they're trying to, they're thinking, if we just go along with this, they're going to let us play football again. They're too young to understand the ramifications. They absolutely should have got up and walked out. They shouldn't have been a meeting with someone whose parents were involved with the Holocaust. Absolutely. But it's the adults that decided it. And I also get, by the way, if you're a kid, you're not going to suddenly you're trying to go along and do the right thing. But this story is really, really disgraceful. And what is disgraceful is the actions, in my mind, of the principal and the superintendent. Now, I don't know. Did the athletic director say, I am not on board with this? He's been silent. Football coach say, what are you talking about? That never happened. In the aftermath, they remove a door. Now there's an adult in the locker room. But now the damage that is done, wow, that is, again, I will check. It's very possible the Valley Breeze also. I just haven't seen. Maybe they also have an extensive story about it. But we haven't seen anything like this in a while. And I don't know what's going to happen with the principal. We know the superintendent's on leave, but these people creating and feeding a narrative that did not exist. And those kids, to sit there and have to go through that in the accusatory way and the woman giving them an assignment. All right, if you're listening to the radio, stay tuned for the 2:00 news. Also, by the way, check depetro.com. We do have that story, shock claim, the father of the Central Falls victim.